Donald Trump knows he is weaker than ever before. And it's not just the courtroom losses or the drop in support. It's his very obvious cognitive and physical decline. This is a man who claimed he renamed the Department of Defense to the Department of War because the media was talking too much about his cankles. That's the level we're at. So now, in a desperate attempt to project strength, Trump is staging political theater, declaring war on Chicago, expanding his police state, and trying to mask weakness with authoritarian bluster. But that act completely backfired when a reporter confronted him, sparking one of the most uncomfortable, screaming meltdowns I've ever seen from Trump. We're going to break it all down. But before we do, make sure to leave a like on this video. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button because it really helps support our work. Now, let's start with where this meltdown began, with Trump's press pool and a question about RFK Jr.
Establishment attacks on RFK Jr.?
Well, he's a different kind of a guy. He's got a lot of good ideas, but he's got a lot of ideas. You know, normally they don't have any ideas, and that's why we have problems with autism and so many other things, because we're coming up with the answers for autism. You watch. We're coming up with the answers for other things that normal people, regular people, easy to get along with people wouldn't be able to do. He's got a lot of ideas, and so do I, and we're going to clean it up.
So RFK Jr., the guy Trump brought in to supposedly make America healthy again. What's his big achievement so far? Changing the color of M and Ms. I'm not sure what public health crisis that solved, but hey, mission accomplished, right? Meanwhile, this is the same guy backing Medicaid cuts and pushing every other attack on healthcare right alongside Trump. And Trump wants us to take comfort in RFK Jr.'s different ideas. Different ideas like bringing back treatable illnesses, undermining vaccines, and turning Reddit threads into public health policy. Since when did the scientific method, observation, evidence, experiment, get replaced with whatever RFK Jr. saw online last night? This isn't innovation, it's nonsense. Empty words dressed up as policy. And while they may sound ridiculous, they're dangerous. Kids with measles don't feel better because Trump and RFK Jr. think science is optional. And that brings us right back to Trump's latest authoritarian stunt, declaring war on Chicago. Before we dive into his unhinged threat, I want to play J.B. Pritzker's response because it's every bit as important as Trump's meltdown.
It's, I believe, a nefarious plan. It's one that's been repeated over and over again by, well, tyrannical dictatorships across history, where you try to incite local population into some mayhem by sending in police or other disruptors, and then claim that there's too much mayhem on the ground, and therefore there must be troops that are sent in, and that's how you basically convert a democracy into something other than that. And so that is what really worries me here. And look, we've already seen it. LA, they did do it in LA exactly that way. But that wasn't new to anybody, at least, again, if you look throughout history. And of course, Washington, D.C., where I know the president and Congress has control of the federal district, so they can do whatever they want, but it is illegal. What they're suggesting that they're going to do is illegal. And we're ready to go to court when they kind of trip the wire, so to speak, and there's been an incident that allows us to do that as soon as we can. And so that's all we have, though. Remember, if the courts don't rule, in favor of posse comitatus, that's an act that prevents, supposedly, the federal government from sending troops into a state to do law enforcement. If they don't enforce that or understand that what Trump is doing is unconstitutional, then we're then at the whims of a fighting force that they're planning to send here. Remember, the people that they're talking about sending in, these military troops, are trained for war. They're not trained for, crowd control. They're not trained to fight crime. They're not trained to arrest people the way that local police are, that local and civilian law enforcement are trained to do those things. And so that's why I've said, look, if Donald Trump wants to help us as we're fighting crime, by the way, we've done a terrific job on the ground here. The last 4 years, we've seen homicides drop in half. We've seen virtually every measure of violent crime drop by double digits. If they want to help us to continue that trend,
this moment is such a huge opportunity for Democrats not just to respond to Trump's antics, but to expose how little he actually cares about stopping crime. There is no policy vision here, no long-term plan to make communities safer. Trump isn't governing, he's staging theater. He's posting photos of himself dressed up like a general declaring war because that's the image he wants to project. But that's all it is, an image. A stunt. None of this is about public safety, and you can see that so clearly when Trump is confronted about it. Instead of offering any real plan, he lashes out. He attacked the reporter who dared ask a legitimate question because that's what he does when the performance starts to crumble.
When you say that, darling, that's fake news.
Well, why
I
leave
don't
the
go to
Department of
war.
Defense?
Listen, be quiet. Listen. You don't listen. You never listen. That's why you're second rate. We're not going to war. We're going to clean up our cities. We're going to clean them up so they don't kill 5 people every weekend. That's not war. That's common sense. Mr. President.
Be quiet and listen to what exactly? Trump had no real response, just a personal attack. He doesn't have an answer because there isn't one. And the way he leaned in, trying to intimidate that reporter, gross. Uncomfortable. But that's the Trump agenda. Be gross, be uncomfortable, and try to scare people into silence. And look at his so-called war on Chicago. What are the National Guard even doing there, besides apparently picking up trash? That might actually be the first useful thing Trump has ever ordered the military to do. It's insanity that he thinks this posturing makes him look tough. Threatening a reporter, calling her second rate, that doesn't project strength. It screams weakness. This is where Democrats need to go on offense. And that's exactly what Wes Moore is doing. We saw it crystal clear in his interview this morning.
Well, it seems like the president is not backing down on this policy. In fact, I want to show you a post. This was posted yesterday. President Trump shared this on his social media account. It's directed at Chicago, and it reads, quote, "I love the smell of deportations in the morning, and Chicago about to find out why it's called the Department of War." Illinois Governor Pritzker called this a threat. Would you go so far as to call this a threat?
I call it a threat. I call it embarrassing. I would call it performative. And I do want to be clear about some of the stats. When people talk about how we watched a decrease because of the National Guard, let's be clear about some of the stats. That the National Guard are responsible during this occupation for 744 cubic yards of mulch spread, 886 bags of trash collected, 270 feet of fence painted. You know what we don't have stats on? How many illegal guns has the National Guard seized? How many drug busts has the National Guard done? How many arrests?
Crime is down in D.C.
Oh, as it is in Baltimore. And in fact, if you're looking at the crime numbers in Baltimore, they're down around the same percentage from D.C. during the surge. And we did not have to ask these citizen soldiers to give up their lives and ask the American people to pay well over $1 million a day so we could have fences painted.
I want to turn to another big issue this week, the fireworks on Capitol Hill. Both Democrats and Republicans grilled the HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. for his vaccine skepticism, for the fact that he's actually limiting access to vaccines. As you know, Florida is working to abolish vaccine mandates for school-aged children. A lot of people across the country, no matter what their political beliefs right now, Governor, are just confused. As the governor of Maryland, what are you planning to do to ensure the public's health in your state?
Well, we just signed policy, in fact, last week, showing and indicating that Maryland is going to apply to the vaccine policies that we had on December 31st of last year. that we are not going to give into conspiracy theorists, and we're not going to give into, lack of data-driven policies that are somehow influencing whether people are going to be safe and whether they get access to vaccines. That we have ample supply of vaccines. We are going to make sure that our vaccine availability is there and real for the people of the state of Maryland, and they should know that they should be safe on that. And I do feel for the people in these other states who are having to go through this chaos and having conspiracy theorists who are continuing to drive your vaccine policy. And my message to them would be to come to Maryland.
Take advantage of the attention Trump is giving you. Use it. Talk about your successes, how crime is actually coming down in your state, how you have a real policy vision that leads to safer communities. Trump doesn't have that. This is the time for Democrats to shine. I always point back to what AOC says about immigration. Trump's agenda isn't popular. We just haven't worked hard enough to make it unpopular, but now it is underwater. Why? Because Democrats have shined a light on it. They've shown how corrupt it is, how it's designed to line the pockets of private prison executives while Stephen Miller gets to act out the darkest corners of his politics. That's all Alligator Alcatraz really is. A stunt to make rich prison magnates richer while your neighbors suffer. Is that the America we want? I don't think so. And Democrats need to say that every single day. We're going to keep saying it on this show. And if you want to support that, as always, hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video, and if you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. Until next time, I will see you soon.